Back-to-back weeks for the first time in a very long time. First time for Fierce Fighting Championship. Happy to be doing it alongside Zach Partridge. And Zach, Bear Lake on the border of the state of Utah. This is as north as we have gone in the past from my recent memory. I absolutely can't wait for this card. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Garden City is just kind of like a hidden gem in Utah that I feel like, everybody knows Bear Lake and has heard of Bear Lake, but the more I talk to people, a lot of people are like, I've never been. I mean, it's literally one of the most beautiful places in Utah. It's it's really cool. And when I was presented with the opportunity to, hey, what would it take to get Fierce to come to a show up there? Um, my initial reaction was like, if we can figure it out, like let's do it because it's going to be really cool. And I think we have everything. The table is set to just have a very unique and fun show that's very one of a kind, once a year type thing that we'll go up there this time of year every year and have a really fun show.
For those who might not know exactly what makes this show specifically so unique, do you mind just kind of explaining some of the things that separate this show from all the other Fierce Fighting Championship
Sure. I mean,
shows?
first and foremost, an outdoor venue, right? It's a venue like unlike any other that we put a show on or that nobody else in Utah is putting a show on like this in an outdoor venue in a place where the weather's supposed to be beautiful up there this time of year. And we do have a contingency backup plan that if weather is an issue, like, we'll move the cage they have a giant pavilion for us, but um, just just from the atmosphere itself to the cages, we're at a park. Um, right by the lake, there's this giant, beautiful American flag waving at the park that's gargantuan. It's one of the first things that you see as you're coming down from Logan Canyon. You kind of climb the hill through the canyon through Logan, and you come up to the summit, and then you take the road down into Garden City. One of the first things you see is that park and that giant flag, and that's right where we are. It's just going to be a really unique atmosphere, and pretty cheap tickets. $20 gets you in. Bring some blankets or lawn chairs, and it's just like the concerts that they do up there, and just come have a good time. And then, of course, if you want some up close and personal table seats, we have those available as well.
Man, it is going to be so much fun. 9 fights, absolutely stacked. 2 professional bouts as well. Norberto Ortiz and Dusty Cox will cut the curtain for us at 155 pounds. Norberto Ortiz, his first fight in about 2 years. One of your teammates, Dusty Cox, making his debut out of Casper, Wyoming.
Yeah, I mean, Norby is about as tough as they come. Like he's just a tough kid. He hasn't. I had the opportunity to corner him in his debut fight, even, and he will fight to the end. He's a guy in the room that he will just grind and keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. And he's you can hit him hard and doesn't deter him. And you can try and submit him, and it's pretty hard to tap him. Like he's just really tough everywhere. And his heart and durability is probably his best feature, along with he has a pretty good skill set as well that he's been working on and growing. For personal reasons, he was out of the gym for about a year, but he's been back training pretty regularly for a while now. Dusty Cox is one that they're a new gym that we're working with from Wyoming, bringing a couple fighters onto this card, and I don't know much about Dusty, but if you just look at his picture, you look at him, I'll bet you he's a tough wrestler from, farm boy from Wyoming that wrestles and he looks like it. And I think it's going to be a really, really fun fight to start off the card.
Another fun one here. Aiden Egler, Zahan Billy Moria. I want to make sure that I'll get that pronunciation right by the day of fights. But Zahan, the oldest fighter ever for Fierce Fighting Championship, 47 years old. Not to mention, this guy has a movie about his life. He has a pretty incredible story. We'll talk more about it on the broadcast. Aiden Egler going to be on the other side. He got that win back in April. This is a lot of fun at 135 pounds.
Yeah, Aiden moving from 145 down to 135. I'm interested to see what he's like, down another weight class. I usually start seeing people, after a fight or two settle into where they want to be and compete at. I think we know what Aiden's about. Zahan, it's one of those ones that, man, I'm like, I told his coach, I don't love it. I don't love when finds this old necessarily fight. It hasn't generally gone well for him, but I'm not their dad and I'm not their coach. And if they want to compete and can pass all the medicals, as a fan and as a human, and I'm cheering for them and their experience, and I hope he gets, what he wants out of it. I know he's trained, over in Thailand and done some interesting stuff. And I mean, he's a really, really cool guy. It's just, this is a young man's game. I mean, freak, I'm 35 and I feel like I'm starting to slip in the room a little bit. He's got over a decade on me. But he's been doing it for a while, and his coach said he really wants to fight. He's not getting any younger. So, they're ready to go. And I think he possesses some skills that, could cause some problems for Aiden as well. I'm sure this is the biggest age gap we've ever had at Fierce, or
It's
close
close.
to.
It's second. It's second.
It's second, right? So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I'll be watching that one very closely. Grateful that Zahan is going to be able to, make the walk for us, and I hope it's a good experience for him. And I'm interested to see what Aiden brings to the table at bantamweight.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, Zahan told me that he feels better now at 47 than he did in his 20s. So very, very curious to see how that one plays out. All right, Lacy Vasquez, Michelle Alquist. Michelle, another one of those fighters out of Casper, Wyoming. All of her wins have been by first round finish. Lacy Vasquez, she fought 5 times in 2023, hasn't made the walk in 2024. Very excited to see where the improvements have been made for her.
Yeah, new gym. She's at a GEMA now for Lacy. We don't know much about Michelle. But I think this is a good test, and don't let the records fool you. I think these girls, 1-3 versus 3-1. I think it's a very, very close, even fight. And I'm excited to see the improvements in Lacy's game as she has moved to a GEMA, to see where she has grown. And maybe what improvements she's made. I've heard a lot of good things from her coaches about the improvements that she's made in the room. On the other hand, I'm very interested to see what type of level Michelle is at. 3-1, but you never know with the type of competition that she's also faced too. We know Lacy's a very tough girl, so if Michelle can come out and get another first round win over somebody like Lacy, it's time to talk about titles and belts and stuff for Michelle, whether it's at Fierce or any other show. This would be a big win for her. I think Lacy, despite the record, I think Lacy's probably the toughest girl that she would beat if this would be her best win if she gets her hand raised. So very, very good fight between these two.
All right, we bump up a couple of weight classes over to 155. Eusebio Salis and Chris Ventura. Eusebio, this guy has a handful of fights, 2 Muay Thai, 2 kickboxing, a couple of MMA fights as well. Chris Ventura is going to be the opposer on this one. And Chris Ventura wasn't able to fight in May, got that no contest decision, I guess you could call it, back in January. That was very controversial. Stoked to see Chris Ventura back headlining these prelims.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Chris is not a normal, 1-0 or 0-1 or however you want to look at it. I view him as a 1-0. He's very well respected. A lot of people talk very highly of him. We've heard him on this podcast, on Dre's podcast, Mike Jones, Kent Mafaleo, Marco Sanchez, all those guys, they speak very highly of Chris. And in turn, it's made it very hard to get people to raise their hand to say yes, that they want to fight him as well. Mr. Salis, he's game, dude. I mean, he's fought Amon Garcia. He's fought a bunch of guys. And that was one thing that we really liked about this matchup, that Chris's team liked about him, is they said, he's down. He's a guy that's going to show up and throw down and kind of push Chris a little bit more than I think his last fight did. And I'm very excited to see the striking style, the striking styles clash, and see where this fight takes place, or maybe see if one of them tries to initiate some grappling in this fight. I think this is a big test and a big jump up in competition for Chris.
All right, moving to the main card, we go to Jordan Jones and Max Taylor, both fighters 1-0. Jordan Jones, we haven't seen him in about a year. That September card, can't believe that was already 12 months ago, but that amount of time has passed. On the other side is going to be Max Taylor with that amateur KO of the year contender. Cannot wait to see this one between these two at 170.
Again, Jordan is another person at a new gym, at a GEMA now from the last time that we saw him. Excited to see his growth. He's got his blue belt in jiu-jitsu. One thing that kind of stood out to me when Jordan took this fight is, his coach said, he's ready. He's in the gym a lot, always training. where Max, after he won in April, he took some time off to focus on his schoolwork, and just recently got back into the gym right as about this camp was starting. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see. I think Max is he's bigger, he's longer, a little bit more. I would say have the advantage in the striking, but one thing that we didn't get to see is Max be able to, grapple in his first fight, and I think that's where Jordan, right, found his success last September, and where he wants the fight to take place is, and get a submission. I think it's going to be a fight that if it stays on the feet, I think it'll go really well for Max. I think if it goes to the ground, that's where Jordan's going to look to implement his game plan and find a submission. So I think it's a very fair, even fight, and I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how that one plays out.
How about Adam Easley, Luke Sanders? Adam Easley, a veteran of this amateur MMA game. As for Luke Sanders, he's going to be moving down 15 pounds for this one as we stay, I should say, at welterweight.
Yeah, I mean, Adam's fought kind of the who's who for a while now too, and I mean he's got a lot of names on that record. He has a lot of amateur fights, and he promised. He said, "You're going to see a very, very ready Adam for this fight. You're going to see a different Adam for this fight." And when he messaged me and told me he's locked in and ready to go, and I think he's taking his training very, very seriously. On the other hand, Luke Sanders, he's kind of been in there with a couple tough guys and built himself a nice little 2-1 record. That a win over Adam Easley puts him at 3-1 at welterweight, and it's like he's kind of coming out of nowhere. This would be a very big win for him. This is a big fight for both of these guys. Adam will be more the hometown favorite up there. Trains up there in the Bear Lake area and does some work up in Idaho. Like I think to get a win and get on the start building another winning streak will be very big for Adam. But Luke's coming in hungry for this fight too. Moving to 3-1 would be a big win for him. I think this could be a pretty good chess match and back and forth war of attrition in this fight.
Yeah, talking a little bit about Adam Easley, just one quick stat. His last 2 opponents' combined records have been 9-1. So no days off for this guy coming up from Logan. So tough competition ahead alongside Luke Sanders. Stepping aside from the original recording of this, we are recording this on Monday night. Blake O'Reilly and Zach Partridge. And Zach, just to break the news, Micah Murdoch going to be facing off against Walker Pelto now.
The lead up to this is just so interesting. We're obviously going up to Bear Lake to Walker Pelto's hometown, large in part because they wanted us to come up, and they were like, we're going to fill this park up with people that want to come watch Walker. And there was not a whole lot of people raising their hands to fight him originally. We got to Mike Pfeiffer Saturday morning as we're finishing setting up the cage at Warehouse 22, get the phone call that Mike sustained an injury that is it's going to make him unable to compete this upcoming Saturday. He's said he's down to rebook it in the future. So we'll see what happens this Saturday. We'll see what happens if that makes sense down the line, or whatnot. But one thing that was really cool is you kind of know who's about it. I had 2 guys Saturday afternoon that were willing to raise their hand to fight Walker up on the Bear Lake card next Saturday. But I said, all right, cool. We got one of them tentatively done. Obviously, contract's not signed or anything, but he couldn't make the 185 limit. Been out of camp, obviously. He was willing to fight him, but wanted 195. Mr. Murdoch gets the quick finish in a fight that I think me and you, when we talked about it originally, I thought that was going to be a dog fight to the point where I didn't really think either of them were going to be in good enough shape to be able to turn around and fight. He gets the super quick 53-second submission. No medical suspension. If you remember, after 1-0, called out Walker on the mic at Warehouse 22 in June. Walker brought that up to me as well Saturday afternoon, said, hey, if Micah Murdoch is healthy after his fight, like Walker is an extremely humble, genuine, nice young man. He really is. But make no mistake about it, you don't become a state champion in high school wrestling without being a competitor. And when somebody says I would like to fight you with Walker. I'm not going to lie, has been a bit fixated on Micah since Micah called him out. Got to give Micah all the credit in the world, though. I believe he's the first person in a decade to fight back-to-back weekends in Utah. I mean, I was talking to Scott Bowler about it today. I mean, probably not since the Ultimate Combat Experience days has somebody done this. And that's back when kind of like everybody did. You go watch like Jeremy Horn fought multiple people in the same night and then fought the next weekend, you know.
Jerome
But I
will
mean,
do
that
it.
was MMA. That was a different day and age. Doesn't really happen that much anymore. So Micah, one is to me is like modern MMA, making modern MMA history doing something like this as an amateur doing this. I mean, this is talk about betting on yourself. And I like guys that bet on themselves a lot. So I think there's only upside for Micah. And, you know, I mean, Micah obviously is there to cause some problems there for Walker's, you know, hometown coming out party.
You know, we keep saying that it's the first time in Fierce Fighting Championship history that this has happened. It's safe to say, I mean, back to backs don't happen in our promotion either, typically, right? Like, it's likely that this will never happen again. I mean, I never say never, but it's likely that within the Fierce Fighting Championship confines, this never happens again.
I'm telling you this right now. As long as I run the show, in November we're about to announce our location for November 8th, and then the next weekend, November 16th. At least it's a Friday to the next Saturday. We get one more day
We get eight,
going up
eight
to
days. I'll take it.
going up to Idaho Falls. I can very, very confidently say back-to-back weekends will not happen again after 2024 at Fierce Fighting Championship.
7 incredible amateur fights, but not to mention we got 2 professional as well in the main and co-main event. At 145 pounds, we kick things off with David Maggio and Vince Wright. David Maggio's second fight of this year. As for Vince Wright, similar to Max Taylor, a guy that he spends a lot of time with in the room, a KO of the year contender in his own right.
I mean, Vince riding high off that big knockout in May, one of the best knockouts I've ever seen, and violent finishes. And I mean, that's something that you can't teach, that killer instinct when you have somebody to hurt to make sure that the fight's over. And he did that in an emphatic way in his fight back in May. But you know, Dave Maggio is another guy. One thing that people don't maybe understand around Vince is how long he's been training. You know, so few fights for how long he's been doing this. Getting to the most active part of his career right now. He could really start hitting a stride and get going. But Dave Maggio has been doing this for a long time too. And when you get two guys that haven't just been fighting for a while now, but training the way that they train, Maggio at Horns Gym for I mean, he's been a Utah mainstay for a long time. And this is a little bit of a homecoming for him too. You know, Wyoming boy, Dave Maggio grew up in Wyoming. He's hoping to have some friends and family out to this one. I think this is, for two guys that are pretty early into their pro career, I think this could be a very high level chess match between guys that are going to look like more like 10 fight pros rather than just 2 and 3 fight pros.
All right, fighters number 17 and 18 to close out the night. It's going to be Chris Chu and Cole Schaefer. Zach, similar to how we were talking about Walker Pelto and the way that his stock has just risen so rapidly, I feel like everyone is rooting for Chris Chu right now. So many people talk to me about how much they are enjoying this rise. He's 2-0 as a pro, been very successful at this professional level. But Cole Schaefer is one of the toughest names in this state and certainly someone who is not going to make it easy for Chris Chu to get past that barrier.
Well, Chris has been this, he's just a bit of it cut from a different cloth, right? Like, he doesn't come from the normal mold that most fighters come from. He's very quiet. He keeps to himself. He's like literally, I think his dad told me he's like a software engineer for like a rocket science. Like, I mean, he's super smart. Doesn't need to do this, but like, I mean, man, he just wants to fight, and he just wants to show how, you know, show all of his hard work that he puts into it. And I mean, I don't know if you can find a more diligent worker in the state. I mean, his life is literally his work at the gym training or at the gym lifting. That's all he does. And he might be the most stubborn, determined fighter we've ever seen. What, his only two losses have come as an amateur to Andrew Mickelson? Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
I mean, so not only just 2-0 as a pro, he had a really good amateur career. I mean, he beat the brakes off of a very tough, and I believe then still undefeated Justin McDonald in their fight. Justin beat me. I mean, like Chris is tough, man. He is tough. And I think at 185, he's a problem for anybody. And he might not be the most athletic or like skilled striker by any means, but man, he's a brute, and he will be in your face for 15 minutes. Like no hand ifs or buts. If you get tired and you are not in shape to go for 15 minutes, as TJ Kohler showed, he will beat you. And I just think it's so easy to get behind Chris, and people are just cheering for him because he's just so easy to cheer and root for because of who he is and how he fights. Took the Jesse Salmon fight on super short notice. He texted me and asked me for that fight. We got him on that. We figured out how to get him on August. He made it happen. He did some things and made it happen to make it so that we could put him on. And then he texts me while I'm still sitting cage side, August 3rd, and says, hey, I only got a 14-day suspension for my cut. I'm good to go September 14th if Cole Schaefer still is good with it. And he respects Cole. And you have to remember, they used to train in the same room, just a few years ago. And and he goes, I consider Cole a friend, but I'll fight him. And Cole feels the same way. It's just a fight between two people that like each other, respect each other, but it's a fist fight. So they're going to go fight and then be friends again after. And Cole is, he started 3-0, hit the COVID thing, had to play catch up. Man, that guy, he went into camp after camp after camp after camp, and he was just grinding. And Cole's one of my really good friends that isn't a teammate at One Hit in the Utah MMA community. And I heard it all. Me and Cole talked about it. A lot of people talking about, maybe his chin's gone or this and that, whatever. You get knocked out, your brain has to heal. And once he took the time to let his brain heal and he took some time away from the cage, now we're starting to see, we kind of saw more couple back-to-back performances. I thought the Brooks Callahan fight up in Heber was a really good, got him 15 minutes of cage time. He, implemented some wrestling, did some good things on the feet. But the most important, he took some big shots and chin held up fine. So it turns out the chin's not gone. It just needed some time. I think this is a super interesting fight. A win for both of these guys is a giant leap. Puts Cole right into a, 6-3. I mean, on another 3-fight win streak, he'll be in a great spot, going into his 10th fight in his pro career with a win over this. And Chris Chu tries to remain undefeated. But man, it's a great learning lesson to see where he really is. I mean, watch out, win or lose. If you can go and show and you can compete with somebody like Cole Schaefer, that could be that. I think it's an incredible fight between two of the toughest, hard-nosed human beings I've ever watched fight.
42-day turnaround for Chris Chu. Cole Schaefer, he also has won 2 in a row and seems to be, like you said, back in full form. This card is so much fun live from Bear Lake this Saturday night. Fights start at 6. Is that correct? I just want to make sure.
Yep. We're going to start a little bit later. Short card. We'll hurry through it. I promise. I know ESPN No Chiss is on. So we're working on the after party right now. Location, all those announcements are going up. So if you're coming up to Bear Lake, come up to Bear Lake, grab some tickets, sit out on the lawn, grab some table tickets, whatever, have a good time. And then we will have a location with the after party. Starting to get sent out next week, and we can go watch some UFC fights and watch O'Malley and Marab and all the other good stuff. I mean, it's going to be a great night, and I think a fun getaway for Utah MMA to, what's so cool is there's no I think it's all just really good dudes on this card, guys and girls on this card that are all going to be the type of people that will, be able to hang out after and have a good time and just enjoy the company. And it'll be a great community experience for the Utah MMA community.
Back-to-back weekends, Fierce Fighting Championship. Cannot wait for it. Zach, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it.
You bet.